Kia ora whānau, ko Andrew Doubleday tēnei, and today we have a homily, a message for Sunday the 10th of April, either Palm or Passion Sunday, though we're going with the Palm Sunday reading. So the text is Luke chapter 19 verses 28 through to 40. Jesus went ahead, going up to Jerusalem. When he'd come near Bethphage and Bethany, at the place called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples, saying, "Go into the village ahead of you, and as you enter it, you'll find tied there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you untying it?' just say this, 'The Lord needs it.'" So those who were sent departed and found it as he had told them. As they were untying the colt, its owners asked them, "Why are you untying the colt?" They said, "The Lord needs it." Then they brought it to Jesus, and after throwing their cloaks on the colt, they set Jesus on it. As he rode along, people kept spreading their cloaks on the road. As he was now approaching the path down from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to praise God joyfully with a loud voice for all the deeds of power that they had seen, saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest heaven." Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, order your disciples to stop." He answered, "I tell you, if these were silent, the stones would shout out." It's a great story, eh? It's easy to get distracted by the story of the donkey's colt, this kind of miraculous story. I don't want to deny the possibility, but I just want to make just a couple of observations. The first is that Jesus had recently been in Bethany, not that long before, and he would have been known there as just a village. It was a small place, and he knew it, and he was known there, and he's also observant. And it may be that when he was last there, he saw this donkey that was very pregnant and about to give birth, or maybe had just given birth, and he'd seen the donkey and its colt, and he thought, And it may be that he just had a word with the owner and says, "Look, I'll be coming back in here in a little while in the future." He said, "I may need this just for a short time. It'll come back to you. Will that be okay?" Sure. I mean, who knows? It could have gone that way. What I am for this day, though, I'm arrested by how this text ends, and I want to just read it again. As he was now approaching the path down from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to praise God joyfully with a loud voice for all the deeds of power that they'd seen, saying, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest heaven." Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, order your disciples to stop." He answered, "I tell you, if these were silent, the stones would shout out." I want to focus on the reaction of the Pharisees and on Jesus' response to them. See, they knew what this was about, and for them, what they saw happening with the crowd was overblown enthusiasm. They didn't recognize Jesus' messiahship. And they would be thinking, if anybody would know and would be able to recognize that this guy's the Messiah, it will be us. And we don't, so he can't be. So it was wrong. It was heretical. And it was dangerous. Just think what might have happened if this had caught on. If there was this general uprising, the Romans under Pilate, and the soldiers would have been in there, and they'd have had a big bloody massacre on their hands. And no, they didn't want that. But Jesus' response is, "I tell you, if these were silent, the stones would shout out." Now, the Greek word that's used here is the word Krazo. and it's an onomatopoeia. It's a word that sounds like what it means. So words like bang, or plop, or zap, or slip and slide, or pitter-patter. They're examples of onomatopoeia. And krazo is a word that imitates the raucous cry of the raven. Krazo! This kind of krazo! This kind of squawkers, raucous, jarring cry. It's used of Bartimaeus, where it says, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. And it says he shouted all the louder so that he could be heard atop the shrill voice screaming out so that he could be heard. And we see the word used numerous times in the coming narrative where the crowd are shouting out the same word, krazo, crucify him, crucify him, or no, we want Barabbas. It's this kind of strident, loud, sharp, harsh crying out. There's a sense of energy, of passion, of explosiveness, and in the way that this word is used. And Jesus uses it as a very evocative image. A stone crying out. Stones are inanimate. I'm actually not sure that I could imagine anything more inanimate than stones. Less likely to cry out. And yet Jesus is emphasizing the appropriateness of what they're doing. He asserts that this is such a moment for this level of joy, that even these inanimate stones would cry out if the crowd wasn't. You see other ones in the Old Testament of images of the trees clapping their hands. And here we have the stones crying out. I want to observe a couple of things about this. The first thing is how easy it is to miss the moment. The Pharisees missed it. They missed it through fear, through arrogance, through rage. They couldn't see what was right in front of them. They didn't recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So there's no way they're going to get that kind of response. For many of us, I think, if we're watching, there's more a sense of embarrassment or cynicism, that we don't want to be seen to be improper or less than dignified. And yet there is such a space for such a moment as this. I wonder how often we are more worried about what other people will think in terms of responding to moments of grace inappropriately. Is it okay for us to be joyfully embarrassing? What will other people think? There's an account in the book of Samuel when David is accompanying the Ark of the Covenant, is finally being brought into Jerusalem, and we pick the narrative up in 2 Samuel chapter 6 verse 14. David, wearing a linen ephod, danced before the Lord with all his might. Can you imagine that? While he and the entire house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouts and the sounds of trumpets. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, who was one of David's wives, watched from a window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. A sense of embarrassment, oh, that's not appropriate. And yet Jesus said it's entirely appropriate. It's entirely appropriate. I just wonder how often I miss those kind of krazo opportunities for joy or for the expression of it because I worry about what other people might think. I've got another question though, are there other krazo moments that we might need to be engaged with? Ones of joy or of pleading like Bartimaeus, or of calling out what's going on. I mean, at the moment where the world is transfixed by what's happening in Ukraine, as a person who has long been a pacifist, I'm coming to a different view. And the question is, who calls it? Who says, no, we will not allow this continue to happen any longer. We will not allow this brutality to continue. And how is it called? Where is the moment a movement is started by one Krazo spark? Now this may date the message because a bit may happen in between times, but Biden had his own Krazo moment where at the end of a speech he was giving in Poland, he ad-libs, he adds a line which is on his heart where he says, for God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. And he's had a lot of criticism for it, but I think he's right. I think he's right. It's an expression of moral outrage. And there's some things that need to be called, though having looked at the examples we looked at earlier, we do perhaps need to be a little bit careful. Worth thinking about, eh? God bless you.